Guys, welcome back to another lecture of Dental Pathshala, where we help you understand and learn dentistry better and easy when this is a continuation of the express revision course for the oral surgery. And before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit on the bell icon so that you don't miss any of our exciting videos. And also you can check out the notes of this particular video in the link in the description box below. And if you are interested in reading more notes in the dentistry, you can check out our website www.x2.com. So let's get started with the today's continuation. So till now we have covered the Le-Fort fractures, mandibular fractures, intermaxillary fixation, and we have also covered open reduction and closed reduction, when to go for open reduction, when to go for closed reduction. So today's video will be talking about the treatment of mid-facial fracture or the Le-Fort fracture. How are we going to manage the Le-Fort fracture? How are we going to treat the Le-Fort fracture? So in case, suppose if a patient comes after a road traffic accident or any sports injury, there is a fracture in the mid-face. What do? The first thing we have to do is maintain the airway, breathing and circulation. So if airway is compromised this time, otherwise most commonly we go for the nasotracheal intubation, which we have already studied. But what if in case if there is a mid-facial fracture, we go for the submental intubation, which is the most common intubation which is done in case of the mid-facial fracture, guys. Otherwise we go for nasotracheal intubation, which is the most common kind of intubation which is used. But in case of a mid-facial fracture, we cannot put the intubation tube from the nose or the mouth since there is a mid-facial fracture. So most of the times we go for submental intubation, or else we can go for the tracheostomy also. Then we start taking the history. We check for one is the airway, then breathing and then circulation. Say suppose if after an accident there is lot of blood loss and the person, because of loss of blood loss, the person goes into hypovolemic shock. Then we either give the saline solution or we give the Ringer's lactate solution. If everything is maintained, airway, breathing and circulation is maintained, then we take the history. In the history, the most important thing which we do is we take the Glasgow Coma Scale. So we have got a chart, and in that is a chart for the Glasgow Coma Scale. So in that chart there are reading for the reflexes of eyes, motor and the verbal responses. We take the responses of the eyes, the motor and the verbal. Then we start with the initial clinical examination. So we do the initial clinical examination and then we palpate and we check for any other evidence of fracture. See, if fracture of mid-face is associated with any other fracture, that also we check. Then the radiology is very important. It plays very important role in precise diagnosis of a fracture and especially CT scan. So what we do in case in emergency, if there is like bleeding coming from the laceration, that should be controlled first by pressure or by placing sutures. Then we check for the bleeding location. Say suppose in case if bleeding is coming from the ear, so say suppose bleeding is coming from the ear, right? So blood from the ear can be associated with the condylar fracture, right? And if there is subconjunctival hemorrhage, if there is, we see that blood in the conjunctiva, then guys, now it is again differentiated. If there is blood coming from the medial part of the eye, say suppose this is the nose, then there can be the fracture of the Le-Fort 2. If both the side bleeding is coming from the lateral and the medial, then there can be the fracture of Le-Fort 3. Right? So Le-Fort 3 fracture or Le-Fort 2 fracture. Then if there is bulging of the tympanic membrane, that can be basilar skull fracture. And very important thing which you have to look for is if there is any cervical spine injury, that you have to check, because we have to rule out most of the cases, guys. What happens in case of a maxillofacial fracture, we see that there is a cervical spine injury. So we have to see the patient, we have to look for the head injury in case if a person is unconscious, a person was driving with a high speed car accident, has met with a car accident. We have to look for the cervical bone fracture because it is a connection from body to the brain, and if this connection get cuts off, then the person dies immediately. So if you have seen somewhere in the TV serials or somewhere, the surgeon when first comes to the ER, he touches the back at the spinal cord and he checks for the base of the skull fracture. Also guys, we check out for the CSF rhinorrhea. So in case if there is say fracture of the sphenoid bone, ethmoid bone, all these fractures guys we'll see in the Lefort-3, right? The sphenoid bone or ethmoid bone. So Lefort-3 fracture we see, or if in case fracture is frontal sinus or cribriform plate, then there can be CSF oozing out from the nose, right? Cerebrospinal fluid. So in case if there is a skull of the base of the skull, fracture of the base of the skull, then there can be symptoms or signs of CSF rhinorrhea. Or in case if there is bilateral ecchymosis. So ecchymosis is basically darkening of the color, and which happens because of the rupture of the blood vessels. So in case if, see guys, suppose this is the skin surface, what happens beneath the skin surface, we have all these blood vessels, right? When there is a rupture of these blood vessels and there is lot of blood, because of that there is discoloration of the skin. This is what do we call the ecchymosis, right? So ecchymosis is basically the darkening of the skin due to the rupture of the blood vessels. So if you see this darkening of the skin or ecchymosis all around the eyes, then that is also associated with Lefort-2 or Lefort-3 fracture. So we can say that if there is ecchymosis, periorbital ecchymosis, if it is present on bilateral ecchymosis, so it can be fracture of Lefort-2, Lefort-3. If it is periorbital is seen in the Lefort-2, Lefort-3 fracture guys, because complete of the orbit there is going to be the fracture of the lacrimal bone, medial side fracture, and the lateral wall of the orbit is also fractured. And in case if there is a bilateral periorbital ecchymosis, then we see the in case of fracture of the anterior cranial base. If there is ecchymosis in the buccal mucosa, say this is the teeth, right, occlusal view, then this particular part is the lip, and if you see ecchymosis in the buccal fold, then that can be due to the reason to fracture of the zygomatic bone, or due to like say lateral wall of the maxillary sinus, which is also frequently seen in the midfacial fractures. Also guys, we have to check for the nerves. See, in case of Lefort-2 fracture, we know that Lefort-2 fracture passes close to the infraorbital foramen. So in case of Lefort-2 fracture, it passes through the infraorbital foramen. In that case, there can be infraorbital nerve damage, right? So that also we have to look for. Or in case of infraorbital nerve damage can be due to the result of any orbital blowout fractures. Whole of the orbit is when blown out after some injury. Or we have to check for the injury to oculomotor nerve as well. Oculomotor nerve as well. In case if there is fracture to cribriform plate, one second, first let us cover the oculomotor nerve. So in case if there is a Lefort fracture, say Lefort-3 fracture, what happens? There is compression of the nerve. So fracture of the bone surrounding the optic foramen can compress the optic nerve. So there can be due to also compression of the oculomotor nerve. So optic nerve can also be damaged. in case of Leaford 3 fracture, and in case if a person is having anosmia, that is absence of the smell, which we have covered in fracture of Leaford 3, or fracture of midface and cribriform plates. So cribriform plate, it contains small pores for the olfactory nerve, right? Then if the patient is unconscious, say, then how will you check for oculomotor and optic function? For that reason we have the consensual light reflex, which also we have covered, I think, in the first part of this express revision course of the oral surgery. We have covered that. What do? We take the torch and then we put the light into the eyes, and then we check for the dilatation of the pupils. So we check for, say, suppose if you can see here, the pupils are dilated. So this is the consensual light reflex. So we have direct and indirect two kinds that we have covered in the first part of this video, first part of the express revision course for oral surgery. Also, if there is ecchymosis in the maxillary buccal fold, or if there is open bite also, guys, we have studied. If there is anterior open bite, which can be due to the fracture of the Leaford 1, or if there is anterior open bite plus posterior disocclusion or posterior cross bite, then we see in case of Leaford 2 and 3, all these things we have covered in the clinical part. So clinically, this is the clinical examination what we have to do when the patient comes to us after a fracture. So these are all the clinical examination. We have to examine the patient clinically. So we have to maintain the airway breathing circulation, take the history, Glasgow Coma scale, then we have to do the clinical examination. Then, guys, we do the palpation. So first thing which should be palpated is, we palpate the frontonasal suture. So let's talk about the palpation. We palpate the frontonasal suture. If the frontonasal suture is not palpated, I mean, then we should be palpated firmly, so that we can exclude the fracture of Leaford 3 and Leaford 2. So we take the thumb and the index finger to palpate in the buccal fold region of one hand, and the another hand we use to move the maxilla. So what we do, we place the thumb and the index finger like this. Say this is the thumb, then we place the index finger inside, and then we check for the mobility. So check for the mobility. If there is anterior maxilla which is mobile, then Leaford 1. If the mobility is up till the mid of the face, then it is 2. If whole of the cranium is getting detached from, if the whole of the face is getting detached from the cranium, then it can be a Leaford 3 fracture. If there is lack of mobility, guys, that means if there is no mobility, don't think that there is no fracture. Then there can be fracture, but it can be impacted maxillary fracture, say. So suppose what happens, usually this is a fracture, right? Usually what happens, there is a space which is created, and because of this reason we call that there is increase in the vertical height, right? Say suppose this was the fracture line. So because of that there is increase in the facial height. But what happens sometimes, say suppose this is the one fracture segment, another fracture segment actually goes inside. So that can be an impacted fracture. So they superimpose with each other like this. So this is a kind of an impacted fracture that can also happen. And also we check for any displacement of the lateral orbital rim because it may result in diplopia. or in case of say Lefort 3 fracture, there can be displacement of the lateral canthal ligament, which we have talked about in the Lefort 3 fracture in the previous part. If you remember that there is the displacement due to the injury to the medial canthal ligament. So that also we have talked about in the previous part, right? So there can be lateral displacement because of the injury to medial canthal ligament. Then we check for the step deformity. We palpate intraorally, palpate on the buttress region, and then disclose if there is any step deformity. Then we check for intercanthal width. We check for traumatic telecanthus if it is the distance is more than 32 millimeters, right? So basically we are going to examine with a gloved finger, check for the mobility. Then we have the radiograph. So guys, we go for take the radiograph. So before you are doing the fixation, you get the CT scan done so that there is no wire incorporation in the CT scan. So the radiograph, you are going to come to a final diagnosis that yes, this is a exact fracture. I mean, the definitive diagnosis is concluded after a radiograph. So we go for cervical spine, Waters view, submental vertex view, PA skull view, which is very important. Then we can also go for lateral skull view, and CT scan nowadays is quite common in any of the fracture cases what we do. But the first thing when you start treating the fracture case, what we do is we do the soft tissue management. So we remove the hematoma so that there is no necrosis. And if any surgery is required for the fracture reduction, then that is delayed up to like 1 week to 7 days of time. We wait till the soft tissue swelling is subsided. We start off the treatment procedure once the soft tissue swelling is gone. So basically the important thing is that we have to do the reduction, but it should not be delayed after 10 days, but otherwise what will happen, the union of bone will start taking place. So the correct time is between 1 week to 7 days of time. So 7 days to 10 days is the time we do. Then we have to take the fracture fragments and then approximate both of the fragments together. Say suppose if this is the fracture fragment, this is another fracture fragment, we take both of them and then we try to approximate them like this. We try to do this. So approximating both of the fracture segments back into its original position is what do we call the reduction in simple words, in the layman terms you can say. So good part is we have got the teeth. So if we get the teeth in the occlusion, that means this is not the proper occlusion guys. So if we get the teeth in the occlusion, that means we have reduced the fracture segments. If we are unable to get it, then we have to go for the open reduction procedure. So wherein we are going to surgically expose and then we can see the bone fragments and then we approximate them. Either we put plates or we put screws, or we used to do with wire also. So what we used to do, this is suppose this is the fracture line, these are the two bony fragments. So these are the two bony fragments. We used to do in old time is drill one hole here, drill another hole here and pass the wire and tie this wire. But this is a non-rigid fixation. This is a method of open reduction, but it still requires the person to be on intermaxillary fixation for 4 to 6 weeks. That is why we do not use it anymore, because even after surgery, if the nutrition is compromised, then what is the use of going up for the surgical procedure? So then either we go for the open reduction or we go for the closed reduction depending on the fracture, depending on the reduction. That means if the fracture is displaced, all these things guys we have talked about. Say if the fracture is displaced like this, all the fragments are not at its original position, then usually most of the times if we are not able to do the reduction. If we are not able to approximate these fragments back together, we go for the open reduction procedure wherein we do the surgery. Or if the fragments are already in its own position, we check in the occlusion, and if the occlusion seems to us very perfect and the fragments in the radiograph also seems to in its proper location, then we just fix the maxillary teeth to the mandibular teeth so that there is no movement which takes place, and therefore there can be the secondary healing and there can be the bone formation, the healing occurs so that the bone is healthy. So this is closed reduction wherein we are going to put the maxillary teeth to the mandibular teeth. We are putting, say, arch wires. So we put the arch wires like this guys, and then we take a wire or the elastics and then hold them back together. We have studied so many methods of closed reduction in the intermaxillary fixation lecture. We have already covered in the previous part of the express revision course. So we do the intermaxillary fixation or the maxillomandibular fixation, basically fixing the maxillary teeth to the mandibular teeth for 4 to 6 weeks, again depending on the age of the patient. If the patient is young patient, we do it for like 3 weeks up to 3 weeks of time. If the patient is adult, 4 to 6 weeks. If the patient is older age, then we can go for up to 6 weeks, 8 weeks of time, longer period of time. So now there is one more thing here, that if the patient is edentulous, if the patient has got the previous denture, then we have got a good thing here. Then we just fix the maxillary denture to the mandibular, both the denture together. If there is no denture, then we have to make a splint. So we make the gunning splint, and then this position the person is the maxillary teeth and the mandibular teeth basically are fixed for 4 to 6 weeks of time. Till this time the patient is on liquid diet. So this was about closed reduction. Now if this is not successful, if the fracture segments are displaced, they are unfavorable, then we have to go for the open reduction, that is surgically exposing the fracture segments. So what do? First of all, we do the IMF, so that from the above the teeth are already in a closed position. Then we do the incision. There are various method of incisions. So the various incisions we can give are lower eyelid approach, if we want to reach the lower orbital rim or the orbit floor, say suppose in case of Leeford 2 or Leeford 3 fracture, then we can go for this subciliary incision, which is just beneath the cilia. So this is the subciliary incision. And also guys, mid-level in the eye, we can also give subtorsual incision or the infraorbital incision. So here, infraorbital incision. I think you guys cannot look properly, see properly at this. So this one. This is our, okay, that is also not differentiated. I think it's better that we use this red color. Okay, this one is our infraorbital incision. So it is to reach the lower orbital rim or the orbital floor. Or we can go from the conjunctiva of the eye, right, like this. So if we reaching this can be our subconjunctival incision. Or if you are going for upper eyelid, so that can be your upper eyelid approach, upper eyelid. Or if you are going from the eyebrows laterally, so this is your brow incision. Or say suppose if you are going from the frontal bone and detaching all of the skin, so this is your bicoronal degloving, coronal degloving. also known as the coronal approach. So we have here we have the sublabial incision. So if it is like this particular area, then this is the upper buccal sulcus approach, which is intraoral approach. This is intraoral. Then if we are going anteriorly here, then we have this one is our sublabial incision. We do not go for sublabial incision anymore. So we go for the marginal rim. Marginal rim. This is also intraoral approach. So if in case if say zygomatic bone is fractured, this particular area we need to go, then we go for the upper buccal sulcus approach, which is the intraoral. If we are reaching for the fracture for inferior orbital rim or floor of the orbit, then we have the sublabial incision. Guys, we do not use it anymore. This is also intraoral approach. So we go 4 to 5 millimeters beyond the attached gingiva, and in case if there is person is edentulous, we go for the crest of the ridge. So to reach the infraorbital rim and the lateral buttress of the maxilla, we go for the marginal rim incision, because what happens in sublabial incision, this is the sublabial incision, this particular point is the point where we go for this sublabial incision. But in case of sublabial incision, what happens, there is this vestibular approach, the wound reopens up and then create one more wound. So there is wound dehiscence. So because of the wound dehiscence, we do not go for, that is opening up the wound, we do not go for this sublabial incision anymore. We go for the marginal rim incision if we are going intraorally. If we are going extraorally, then we go for the lower eyelid approach, which is a subciliary approach, which is the best approach, guys. This approach is the best approach, less complicated. We put an incision parallel to the ciliary margin, and once you put this incision, so once you open up, make this incision, open up this, retract this lower eyelid, so you will see these orbicularis oris muscles, fibers of this orbicularis oris muscle. Orbicularis, I'm sorry, oculi, I'm so sorry guys, orbicularis oculi, we are talking about eye, right? So once we place an incision parallel to the ciliary margin, we can see the orbicularis oculi muscle, and then it is dissected in the direction of the muscle fiber. So we go inside, deep inside, and then we can see this orbital septum. So then we keep on going and we can see the infraorbital rim. So in order to reach the lower orbital rim and the orbital floor, say in case of LeFor-2 fracture, then we go for the lower eyelid approach. The best one is the subciliary. Then we can also go for the infraorbital approach, so which is going towards the infraorbital margin. So this is the infraorbital, if you can see here, infraorbital incision, this one. Then we have the subconjunctival. So subconjunctival is through the conjunctiva, which is also known as the transconjunctival approach. Conjunctival approach. So we go 1 centimeter above the frontozygomatic suture, expose the orbital floor. Basically we take the forceps and we go within the conjunctiva. So from the sideways we reach. Then we have got the upper eyelid approach. So guys, in the upper skin of the upper eyelid, from the mid pupil to the lateral orbital rim. So say suppose this is the eye, we have the upper eyelid right here, this is the eye, then we have got the upper eyelid over here. So we take this incision, go from mid pupil line, so from here we incise up till here. This is for upper eyelid approach. So in the crease, this is just the eyelid, we go in the crease, this particular area guys. So this particular area, the lateral part. So I have to differentiate it. Say this is the medial, right, nose. Then brow incision. So same thing if we do in the eyebrow, that is the brow incision. Say same thing we do in the eyebrow. So that makes it a brow incision. This particular line is our brow incision. So when we go expose the frontozygomatic suture, both of these are to expose the frontozygomatic suture. So frontozygomatic suture, right, in case of say Lefort 3 fracture. But here what happens, we are going superior border of the lateral eyebrows. But what happens after surgery, there is a visible scar and there can be a loss of hair associated. So usually females do not go for this approach. Then guys, we have the bicoronal degloving incision or the coronal approach. Herein there is no need to shave the heads. We go from the frontal area. So we whole of the skin we are going to reflect. So this is the bicoronal or the bicoronal degloving approach. So guys, once we have incised, then we do the open reduction, we go for fixation. So fixation can be in form of plates. Usually we use for mid face is the mini plates. Then we have the screws, or we can go for the transosseous wiring, which we do not use it anymore. The reason behind is that transosseous wiring. Reason behind is that it is a non-rigid fixation. If we are using transosseous wiring, along with that we have to go for IMF. So the patient will still be on the liquid diet, intramaxillary fixation. So that is the reason we do not use it. We put the plates. So plate the most common plate which we use is, we use the 4-hole plate. So the most common one is the 4-hole mini plate with a gap. So this is the mini plate which we use. Fixation, let's write fixation here. So mini plate 4-hole with gaps, and the screw which we put it here is the 6 mm screw. So the 6 mm screw. At least 2 holes on either side of the fracture line. Say suppose this is the fracture line, we have got, this is the fracture line. So after reduction on both the side, at least we use 4 holes guys. On either side 2 holes we use. And if you are using transosseous wiring, then we use the 26 gauge wire for transosseous wiring, but we don't use it anymore. We also have got the suspension kind of wire wherein we suspend it. So that also we don't use it anymore. So now a good question is, where do we place these screws, right? Where do we place these plates, mini plates? Where do we place it? We place it along the buttresses. So we place these plates along the buttresses, right? If you have seen in the old ancient building, this is one wall, say suppose this is another wall. So there are these buttresses which are connecting. So basically these are the pillar or these are the pillars which are taking up all the load. So they take up the forces which are transmitted to the cranial structures, or then they give forces to the cranium. So these are the strongest point, you can say. So buttresses, we have got the vertical and horizontal buttresses. We have got the nasomaxillary buttress starts from the maxillary canine along the alveolar processes. So starts from the root of the maxillary canine, goes along the, okay, let's take some other color guys so that we can differentiate. So take this one only. So nasomaxillary buttress starts from maxillary alveolar process of the maxillary canine, goes lateral to the pyriform aperture and goes down frontal process of maxilla and goes up till the frontal bone. So in case if there is Lefort 1 fracture, so the fracture line in case of Lefort 1 fracture, say guys, is this one, right? Like this. So in that case, we put an L-shaped plates at this nasomaxillary buttress like this. So 2 holes above the fracture line, 2 holes below the fracture lines, like this. 2 holes above, 2 holes below. So like this we put 4 plates, L shape, right? This is for fracture 1 Lefort. Let's write just 1, class 1. Then guys, we have the next buttress is zygomaticomaxillary buttress. Let's see if this color works. So zygomaticomaxillary buttress starts from the maxillary second molar. So alveolar process of the maxillary second molar, and then goes above the body of the zygoma. So goes here, and then the frontozygomatic suture. So up here, and then in the frontal bone. One second. So again we are going to draw up here the frontozygomatic suture. So now if you know the Lefort 3 fracture, guys, Lefort 3 fracture is something like this. Starts from the frontonasal suture, and then it fractures lacrimal bone, ethmoid bone, and end till the frontozygomatic suture, right? So in that case, if you can see here, one buttress we can, one plate we can put at the frontozygomatic suture, right? So here we can put a plate, mini plate. So this is here, we put 2 holes mini plate in case of Lefort 3 fracture using the frontozygomatic buttress. The next buttress, these are the vertical buttresses, guys. The next buttress we have is the pterygomaxillary buttress. Now this pterygomaxillary buttress, it runs from posterior maxilla to the pterygoid plates. So that I cannot show you, but utilizing that in the Lefort 2 fracture we can use that. So Lefort 2 fracture is something like this, right? Pyramidal shape. So here we can put a plate using this pterygomaxillary buttress, right? Then we have the horizontal buttresses. So the horizontal buttresses we have is the superior orbital rim. So we have a buttress like this, superior orbital. Okay, one second guys. We have the superior orbital rim, and we also have the inferior orbital rim. So I hope this color works, and the inferior orbital rim. So at the inferior orbital rim, in case of Lefort 2 fracture, we can place it like here, 2 plates, right? And superior orbital rim, in case of Lefort 3 fracture, we can utilize this. So here we can put plates. So here like this. Utilizing that in both the cases we can use, right? So I'm just going to make one big like this. So that's how you can utilize these buttresses and put the mini plates at these buttresses. So we have the brown one, we have is our inferior orbital rim, which is a horizontal buttress. Then we have the superior orbital rim, which is again our horizontal buttress. This is the superior orbital rim. We also have a buttress at the alveolar process of the maxilla. So one more horizontal buttress, alveolar process of the maxilla. So these are the horizontal buttresses. Then vertical we have is the nasomaxillary buttress. Nasomaxillary buttress. Then we have the zygomaticomaxillary buttress. Zygomaticomaxillary buttress. And we also have the pterygomaxillary buttress. I cannot show you the pterygomaxillary buttress because we need a side view. So you can use all these buttress and put the plates over here, or you can put the screws. So these are the points wherein we put the plates or the screws. Then once we have fixed with the plates or screws, we open up the IMF, we recheck the occlusion, and then we suture it back. So this is how we manage and treat the midfacial fractures. I hope that you have understood the treatment of the Leaford fractures or the midfacial fracture. So if you have enjoyed the video, then give it a thumbs up. Also comment in the comment section below, because this motivates me to put videos for you guys every day. And you can also check out the link in the description box below for the notes of this particular videos. You can also support me on Paytm as well as on PayPal to make free videos for you guys and to make free notes. So till then, keep reading, keep learning, stay motivated. I'll see you soon in the next lecture.